We retrofitted our house for heat pumps, so we're so excited just to see how they work.
They're slick, they're fast.
So far, so good.
Quickly.
So far, so
I
good.
mean, the unfortunate thing is it's not as distributed heat model. So you need heat pumps, like, I live in a small house,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of small rooms.
You can't get to them all.
So you have to either, like, we have three, one in each level, and it does a great job in the rooms that they're in.
Yes, but how about the exteriors? Well, we'll see about the same issue.
Yeah.
We got the same issue.
I mean, we just went with three, but probably needed more.
Well, we have one on the basement level, two in the main level, one, well, it's in the central hallway. Points every direction. With all the doors open, that'll probably work. Who knows?
Yeah, it's just when the doors are closed.
Huh? Yeah, well, the doors are closed, forget it. They're on. If you close your door, you're on your own. Let us know when we're on.
You ready?
We're on.
Thumbs up.
Oh, 2 minutes.
You gotta be on TV, you gotta be.
I understand. I think I'm going to take the risk. Good evening. Welcome to the Hanover Selectboard meeting of October 3rd, 2022. Here in Midtown Hanover. Here tonight to have some fun and do good work for the town. As always, the first order of business is public comment. David.
Good evening. My name is David Vincelette, live at 93 Lebanon Street in Hanover. Last time I was here, Peter asked me if I wanted to have a conversation, private conversation with him and Bill, and I could bring a partner of my choice to conversations about issues I have with the town, and I find that unacceptable. What I have to say to you needs to be said in public, deserves to be said in public, because the people have a right to know what is going on in this town and what has gone on in this town. And I would be shirking my responsibility as a retired Army officer if I didn't bring this up in public so that you could deal with it, or federal authorities can deal with it. I've come to you since November 9th, 2016, complaining the fact that you put a fence around my family's property, fenced us in for 25 months in violation of state law, RSA 633-2, restraint of freedom, and federal law, 18 U.S.C. 241 and 242, which don't allow the keeping of slaves without their civil rights in a compound. I have at least the right of a slave, sir, and so does my family. And this town has kept us from having our full civil rights. You still have that banner up on there. A banner that shows that it's okay to take American Indians' land from them, steal it, hold them hostage, feed them rum and poison their property. It's not really a very good symbol for you, but it's accurate. Now, I've been asking you to call in federal authorities. The FBI is the group that is tasked with color of law violations, where officials of a town violate an individual's civil rights and do it as if they were doing it with the authority of the law. You all have acted. You came up with a plan. You put a fence around my property. And for 25 months I came to you pleading for you to free us so that we could have water and electricity and firewood and heat, food, and all of you sat there and did nothing. And now it's too late, Peter. There's a 5-year statute of limitations on federal crimes that you've committed. And I'm not going to delay it any longer, and you're not going to delay it any longer either. How many minutes are you giving me tonight, Peter?
You've got 2 more.
How
You've
many
got 5
minutes are you
minutes.
giving me tonight?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. What happened to the 10 minutes that you said you gave me?
Excuse me.
In your affidavit before the court, you told them, you lied to them, and said that you gave me 10 minutes. Where'd those other 5 minutes go, Peter?
David, you have 5 minutes and you've used about 4 of them. Could you wrap up, please?
No, I'm not going to wrap up, Peter. You're going to give me 10 minutes.
David, we established many meetings ago.
Peter, you lied to the court. You have perjured yourself. It's going to a hearing, and you're going to have to testify. And you've already said in your affidavit that you gave me 10 minutes. But the police in their affidavits all say you gave me 5 minutes. Somebody's lying, Peter. Who is it?
David, please wrap up.
I'm not going to wrap up, Peter,
Okay.
for 10 minutes.
Then we're going to
You're going to have to listen.
Then we're going to sit here for 5 more minutes
Yeah, that's right.
and get going.
Because you're a liar.
David, I've had enough of this. Would you
I've
please-
had enough of it too.
David, would you please step
You
down?
need to call in federal authorities.
David, would you please step down?
You need to call in federal authorities, Peter.
Just adjourn the meeting. What do we do?
Recess.
Yes, I move that we recess the meeting.
So second?
So second.
Can't take another 5 minutes,
And
Peter?
please ask David to leave. Thank you. We are recessed. We are in recess.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you also, Tracy.
I'm new in town, okay?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't wanna have any issues tonight, right?
Yeah.
They said you can talk for another 3 minutes, the camera's running,
Yeah.
because they have like a camera.
Yeah.
Do you wanna just spit it out, talk to the camera, they can review it, and say your piece, and then step down? You willing to do that?
I just assumed they were in here listening to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost.
They have an obligation, a selectman, to come in here and face the music. They created the problem. They allowed people to be held in violation of civil rights. They can taste the sweet sound of my voice.
I hear what you're saying, yeah, you definitely wanna talk to him, but,
Yeah,
Peter said he's done.
good, he should be done. He should be arrested and taken out of here in cuffs.
He doesn't wanna listen to you anymore,
Well, I
'cause-
don't wanna listen to him anymore, but I do. I come and I listen and I do what he says, he's not gonna limit me to 5 minutes when he says he gives me 10.
Okay.
It's a constitutional right. You have an obligation. I know this is difficult for you, but you have an obligation to enforce the Constitution against
Absolutely, yeah.
evil rulers who are violating my rights.
So you did get to speak tonight,
I
and
spoke 5 minutes and I have 5 minutes more. And he said to an affidavit to the police department that he gives me 10 minutes.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get my 10 minutes.
Do you wanna speak for a few more minutes? I'm listening.
I'll speak forever, but that has nothing to do with what they have to listen to. They need to listen to the facts of what happened. And the new manager needs to be here to hear it.
So Dave told me he's done listening tonight, so you're
Who
gonna,
told me?
I'm sorry, Peter
Peter?
said to tell you that he's done listening tonight.
Yeah, well, he's been done listening for 17 years. He hasn't never listened. He just sits there and he never answers questions I ask.
All right. Just to let you know, the cameras are rolling.
Right,
okay? So,
good.
um,
I'm
just-
all into reality and truth.
Sure.
I want this exposed as much as possible. I've been begging these people to expose it. If the cameras are on, it doesn't bother me.
Yep.
People need to see, there's people in Hanover need to stand up. Look at your uniform. What's on your shoulders?
Do you wanna talk outside?
No,
No, okay.
no. You got a Dartmouth symbol on your shoulder of the college on both shoulders. Okay? This is a town that's been run by Dartmouth. Okay? I've been abused. They put poison in my water. They poisoned my children with asphalt waste and coal tar. The land that I bought all along Mink Brook, they poisoned it. They put hazardous waste dumping in
I
it.
hear you,
When I complained about it, they put me in a prison. The fire chief sat on his ass while I was held down there for 2 years with his thumb up his butt, telling me that he knew where my driveway was and he didn't need to come show the police. The police didn't come for 1,867 days. 1,867 days. And they don't want to hear 5 minutes of my speech? They can kiss my you-know-what. They need to hear it. Just because they live in Hanover and every one of them is a Dartmouth employee or past employee. Okay?
Mhm.
They're rubbing elbows with the wrong people. They have to rub elbows with the right people. They need to be like you. You should be willing to talk to people, to be willing to hear what they say. These people made a secret agreement not to answer any of my questions for 5 years.
Can we talk outside?
No, I'm comfortable right here.
Tom, you're slowing everybody else down. It's like, maybe you could put it in writing and,
I've put it in writing.
well, then what do you want me to do?
I didn't want you to do anything. Who are you?
I'm just a town person, I'm here for other business.
Well,
and
good.
I have to sit here to listen to your shit for another 3 hours. It's like,
Well, why
it's
don't
not
you do
fair
something
to me.
about it? Why don't you do something about it?
I'm not gonna do anything.
I know you're not gonna do anything. They didn't do anything when the Nazis put people in fucking prisons.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Nobody in this town stood up when my family was abused.
Do you have fork come
You
down
want me
the
to
town hall?
give a shit that you have to wait for a couple minutes?
Yeah, for now.
Wait and see.
Have you said your piece?
Said part of it. I haven't said my second 5 minutes of my talk to the town of Hanover. They need to restart their
Yes.
meeting. They're not gonna run away. They took me out in chains last time. they're having a rough time in there. I'm sure it's much easier back in there laughing than it would be having to listen to me. I have no doubt in my mind. That's why I want them back here.
Can we step outside here?
No,
I just want to talk to you, all right?
I don't want to talk to you privately.
Okay.
I just assume everything's right in public.
Yeah, okay,
Because it's awfully
So-
hard to get your body cameras when I ask them from the police department.
sure. So listen, we want this meeting to continue, okay?
Yes, I do too. They just don't want anybody that doesn't believe in what they're saying, right? They just want somebody who doesn't disagree with them. That's not me. I do disagree with them, and I'm gonna let them know I disagree with them. And I'm gonna let them know the crimes that they've committed until they get federal authorities in here to investigate.
Is this usual, like, does this shit go on every meeting, or is this, it does? Okay, all right. I was aware of how these things work. You show up at every meeting, dude?
Just, please,
He does, okay.
not tonight. Please.
I'm new to all this, so I'm.
Respect.
I figured, you know, whatever.
You also weren't called to the microphone. I was. Alex, you haven't called me yet. It's only been 3 months. I know you're a busy man.
These things get resolved one way or the other, or do you?
Yeah, it'll get resolved. I'm just waiting on my partner to come down.
It's good performance theater, right? Someone else says it.
says rental housing debt, that, and then it gives a lot of,
Dave, I just want you to know my camera's still rolling, okay? At this point, you have to leave, okay?
Why is that?
That there's no other option because you've had your allotted time.
No, I didn't have a lot of time. I had 5 minutes.
He said he was gonna give you 5 minutes, right?
He said he's sworn in an affidavit to the police department. This
So,
gives me 10 minutes.
You have to leave now.
So I have to leave now because you're gonna let him commit a crime and violate my First Amendment rights.
You'll be placed under arrest if you don't leave now, okay?
It's never been a
That's up to you. If you wanna make that mistake, that's on you. But you know he only allowed me 5 minutes and then he walked out.
It's time to leave, okay?
the 17th.
That's not today, that's, the paper said it was today.
Right, but then they
Please stand up.
canceled that because of the last meeting, there were too many problems with it. It should be quite clear.
But there's still this.
Yes, is there any reason for me to be here tonight?
I guess, if you have to
No, I'm
think
gonna
about
try
it,
to
it's
review,
good
okay?
to hear about it.
Okay, all right, so we get a chance to talk about it.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
And because I've talked at almost every meeting, I will not raise my hand until everybody else has had a chance to do it. No, this has only happened like twice in usually meetings.
Session's like,
Everybody's lousy and the chair will just.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, yeah.
You help me with yours? Yes.
So you will be fine. This is, been going on for years.
Still hot.
Yes.
They started out so.
It never follows the right procedure from the beginning, so then.
Did we understand?
The escalation.
Yeah.
Part of it is then he was a lawyer.
Yeah, when people start saying the
I
Constitution.
just want to be sure it's. Well, he has a lot to do, but it didn't pass the bar.
Yes.
If we get to it.
Yeah, that's good.
But it did go over.
I think you did this 4 years at Adjournment.
He's not exactly sure, I don't understand a lot. He hasn't, he didn't get in life, so.
So you know the thing.
It was on his resume when he applied for it. I just wanted to see his process. He worked for me for 5 years. He was a job.
Definitely is, definitely is.
I always see. I know he's on the financial, finance committee. But
Yes.
it's, I guess that over.
Yes, yeah, we cover
It just
both.
means the meeting always
So
starts.
we're kind of the one place that can be looking at what's happening here, what's happening there. You know, I mean, sailing or we really face our storm or whatever, so it's not carrying hard. Yeah.
And I'm co-chair since then.
Well, yes, your name is signature coordinator for all the years that I've been in town.
And your husband, it has been great to get to see our club and.
Okay, so we adjourn, we didn't adjourn, what do we do?
Recess?
Recess. Okay. This chair is stuck. Now it's not stuck. Okay, you're back in session. Any additional public comment? Chief?
Hi, my name is Marty McMillan. I am the Hanover Fire Chief, and I just wanted to comment on David Vincelence's couple of remarks. I just want to go on record and historically state that the fire department has responded to his property. I won't get into specifics for both medical calls, fire-related calls, calls that the Milk Brook was contaminated. We have always responded in a timely fashion to David's property. I understand the issue that he has with the fence. We put a a plan together, because sometimes his roadway down to his property is frozen and not plowed. So we had a plan put together, pre-plan, should he need fire suppression at his house. We were never unable to get to his house as far as with a fence or blocked out. I know the town had put a fence up, and I think you're all aware with the zoning and the reasons for that. But I just want to be crystal clear that we were always in a position to respond to David's property in a timely fashion, and never once did we ever deny that response to him, and always treated him with the utmost respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Hearing none, the next order of business is the continued discussion on the rental housing ordinance. So board, this is not a public session, but we've received delayed action on this until our next meeting to give time for the final draft or the most recent draft to be published and viewable by the public. We've received that. Are there any questions about the changes? There were very few. There were no substantive changes that I could see. There was actually one, but which Carrie picked up, but about including the what was it in the trying to find it. I thought there was one where we forgot the fact of about a interim COC. I thought that was substantive, and I saw that got picked up. But other than that, I didn't see anything particularly substantive. Questions, board, or? It's not a public meeting, but are people here to discuss it or want to make some comments?
I thought this was going to be the public hearing, because that was what was in the paper. Now I've been told by these folks here in...
Yeah, we delayed the formal public hearing until our next meeting,
Which is when?
the 17th.
Same time here?
Say again? I'm sorry.
At the same time?
Yes, we meet at 7:30.
If he has questions.
So there's no point in...
If you'd like to make some comments now, we're always welcome.
Is it a done deal? Is it like...
Please come to the mic and introduce yourself.
Philip Pushevich. Is this a done deal?
You have to say your name now, that the microphone can, because what you're doing is it's recording.
Philip
And
Pushevich.
you're on TV, so just,
And
Philip
we need-
Glushevich.
for the record, for the minutes, we need your name and,
A fourth time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Philip Glushevich.
thank you.
Is this a done deal already, or is there like a chance that this would, I mean, it wasn't clear from the one article I read in the Valley News whether this was a proposal or whether this was, gets implemented automatically.
Well, we've been working on this for many years. We've had multiple public hearings, we've had work sessions.
Okay,
So I guess from our perspective, we've worked this one hard.
okay.
And I would be somewhat surprised if we learned anything newer that we haven't thought about or taken into consideration before. But who knows, right? That's why you have public hearings.
And so does it get voted on by the town? I'm
No.
sorry to ask ignorant questions, I've not
That's
been
okay,
paying
that's
attention.
okay.
and
No, this is an
following
ordinance
these
that'll
things.
be passed by the select board.
So the select board gets to decide
Yes.
on its.
Select board
Okay.
votes to adopt this ordinance.
Okay. And then I was told recently that the copy of the the ordinance is on the website somewhere, and that if
yeah.
I root around, I can find
And the
it.
RFQs and all that stuff. yeah.
Okay, all right, well, I guess I'll just do that then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have an extra copy if you want it.
Sure, that'd save me.
And if you want, on the website, it's hanovernh.org/rental housing.
Okay.
That's got all the FAQs, all the drafts, for the last couple of months, all the documents are in one spot.
I could just, there's a whole packet.
You sure?
Yep. Let me just make sure you have the right first page. There you go. I've got like 3 copies.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so,
Jolyn, I think these guys wanted to copy.
Oh, please.
To comment too.
Hello,
hello.
I'm Jolene Kish. And I just had a few comments that I think we tried to bring up before, but they didn't show up in at least the version that I have. So one of them is under administration and enforcement. It says that inspections shall be made at reasonable times with no less than 24 hours notice to the responsible party or occupant. And we've corrected that before. It needs to say and occupant, because they both have to be notified. So I just want to make sure that that doesn't get lost in the next instantiation.
Tell me again the section.
So I'm in section 8.
Oh, I think it's the top of page 2.
Anyone one?
The page numbers that I have it near the bottom of page 4.
I've got, I think it's 8A.
Correct, it's 8A, section 8A. And the last line of it says responsible party or occupant, but both the responsible party, since they're the responsible party, needs to know something's happening. But by law, we have to tell the occupants and give them 24 hours notice as well. So it needed to say
Okay.
and, please. That was one question. Another question at the top of page 7, which looks like, whatever that is, 9C6.
1X,
Yeah,
C,
1XC6.
okay.
It says, any unit which is unsanitary or which is littered with rubbish, garbage, tires, or appliances. I would request that we word that a little more clearly so we're clear about what's inside and what's outside. Because I'm assuming the implication is the rubbish, garbage, tires, and appliances are outside, but the unit could be unsanitary inside or outside. So I'm not sure what the inspector is supposed to be inspecting. So it would be great if that could be clarified. I'll get to fees, that's my last thing. One more thing that we had mentioned last time also was in that same section under E, where it says, it shall be the duty of the responsible party to keep the unit in good and safe condition. There's a really long sentence, but basically it talks about applicable codes, provisions, and laws, regulations, and ordinances. And my suggestion is that that be the end of that sentence, because the next thing says the responsible party shall be aware of and act to eliminate disorderly action. So one sentence is about the codes and the building and the laws, and the other sentence is about tenant behavior. So having that all in one sentence just seems a little confusing. So I would request that you find a way to word it so they're two separate things, even if you just end it at ordinances and remove and such and just start with a new sentence. And then the last thing that I had a question about, which may take some discussion at the next meeting, but to put it out there, the fee structure is a little confusing for me because it seems like it's set up predominantly for single-family homes, and I think we need to be a little more clear about which fees are per building and which are per unit when there's multiple units. So it says the application fee is $50 per unit, but every other time I've heard it discussed, it was per building. And then the inspection fee was $250 per unit. And then replacement of a COC is $25, but if you only get one COC per building, then the transfer of the permit should be per building, not per unit either. So I just see some confusion between what's per building and what's per unit. And so my suggestion is that the application be per building and the transfer permit be per building. And then that the inspection and the reinspection are specific to a unit, so that would be per unit. I don't know if that was the intention, but I'm just trying to help clarify that. The other comment I have is that when you have a multifamily building, there's the unit, which is, the kitchen and the living room, the whole thing, but then there's the common spaces that are important to the building. So there's the hallways, the stairways, the parking lot, all that kind of stuff. So I was thinking, and I could be wrong, I don't know what they were thinking when they wrote it, but I was thinking that the application fee was to cover the building that's not the living space, and that the unit inspection was covering the inside, the part where the person occupies the space. And so I've only seen one checklist draft of what the building inspector would check on, but it looked like it really was checking the unit. But it would appear to me that we would want a checklist for the outside part, that's not the inside part of the unit, that's the living space that we're inspecting. So that would tie well if we had one document that inspected the outside common spaces, whether it's single family or not, and that was the application fee. And then the inspection fee would be one of those packets of unit checklist for each inspection that you do, because you'd have to do that whole thing again. So I was just trying to
Good points.
clarify that, so that was it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Joanne.
Yep.
Any other input? Okay, so we will,
Here.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Hari Asmus of Etna. I just wanted to let anybody else go before me since I've been here before. I do have my thoughts in writing that I can send along, but the last time I was here, I talked about having more information about the authority for the different components of this ordinance, and I see that it has a parentheses adoption by select board reference on page 1 under authority, and I think that needs to not just say adopted by select board reference, but what is the reference? So I think that's not quite all the way done, and then I would repeat the same comments that I made the last time in terms of other items, and I will pass those along in writing. Applicability, I'm still not sure from looking at this, and I've asked this at a prior meeting, does this ordinance pertain to things that are more like boarding houses, like fraternities, sororities, other affinity houses? Is there an answer to that? Does this apply to them, or are they exempt?
Those are inspected currently.
On a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I realize that, but if we're supposed to treat all rentals the same, and I just couldn't tell, from this, and I thought it was supposed to cover all rentals. But the language was not clear whether they were, but I am aware that they're, and our chief is still here, inspected, 4 times a year, both as a residence and as a place of assembly, because they serve both of those. So you're saying, though, that as far as you're concerned, they're exempt from this ordinance?
Well, I'm not sure it's applicable. So a college dorm is not a rental.
Right, but
The
then we
same
have
way
like
that
the
an apartment-
boarding houses, and we could have some that are sororities, and there are college,
But they're all institutional.
but there
And so
could
they
be
have to
some that
adhere.
are, not at some point. I don't know that there are any
Well,
currently.
the zoning doesn't allow it, so.
I mean, zoning could change, so
Mhm.
just, at this point, we're having exemption then for any college affiliated one, but otherwise, boarding houses would.
We'll have to look into it.
Okay, all right. Under part 6, where it says, that this will not interfere or annul any other ordinance, rule, regulation, permit, or any other more restrictive code. But I was just wondering, will this ordinance enforce requirements that conflict with prohibitions found in state statutory code? For example, RSA 153 says that there are instances where carbon monoxide devices are not required in rentals. And that form that we have, pretty much says that it would be. So if there is a code
that has a prohibition against something, I mean, I think a more kind of one that more people have heard of in the profession is, you know, that no single family home can have, be required to ever have a sprinkler by New Hampshire state law. So but there's a number of these things in codes that exclude different things. And if state law or code excludes something, would we insist that we would enforce it? Or would we go with the state prohibition? So
I don't know. I mean, I
Yeah.
would imagine you would adhere
Yeah.
to the state law.
And I
So-
think the planning group has looked into all of these issues, all these questions, and I know they're coming up again. So let me go up to 60,000
Okay.
square feet. The way I'm viewing this is, landlords are already required to register within the town that they are renting. So the same people will have to apply for these, under this rental ordinance. Very simple process, right? Then inspectors will go out and inspect the houses, inspect the rental units. Probably 9 times out of 10, they'll conform. Everybody's happy. 10% of the time, there'll be something that has to be corrected. My guess is that most of the time, the landlord will say, oh, I didn't realize that. They'll take care of that right away. Now, if you get into a situation where a landlord, you know, is disputing whether this regulation is enforceable, is a part of this agreement, that'll become a one-on-one discussion with that individual and the zoning group, and they will figure that out. They will figure that out in that 1 out of 100 times where it becomes somewhat contentious. So I'm happy with that. That's okay with me. So this ordinance doesn't have to cover every nit. It just has to set the framework, the policy, and I think we've done that, pretty darn well. So that's where I am in my head in terms of, do we need to address all of these issues in this ordinance to the level that you'd like them addressed? And you have an amazing, what's the right word? Sense of discipline and looking into all these matters. But from where I'm sitting is, this sets down good policy, it sets down a framework, it's a work in progress, we've already said that. There'll be things that have to be adjusted and corrected as we go along. But I think it sets the framework for a legitimate, well-thought-out rental ordinance. And that 1 out of 100 times where those kinds of issues you're talking about become an issue, they're going to be debated between the planning department and the individual landlord, and they'll either resolve it or they'll take us to court. So that's kind of where my head is in terms of making additional corrections, additions. Now, some of these things, like you pointed out, the one obvious error, that's the kind of thing we need to get straight right away. Unit versus building, that's something we have to get straight right away. And so we'll go back to the planning department and say, did you mean building or did you mean unit? Did you mean dwelling or did you mean unit? And they will know what they mean. They've looked at this. This thing has been worked on for years. It's been worked on by the planning group for years. It's been reviewed by lawyers many times. And so I think we're in a good place. I want to get those things correct. But the other detail that you want to get into is particularly, you know, I think I appreciate it, but I don't see us making changes to this now to answer all the questions that everybody might have about what applies, what doesn't apply, what about this circumstance, what about that circumstance. So I'm going to stop there.
Okay, well, you're going to stop me?
Pardon?
I'm sorry?
I'm stopping there.
Okay, you're stopping,
Me.
okay.
I'm
you're
stopping me.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to say that part of my interest is making sure that when people go to the ordinance, that they can read it and they understand it. Because we have, you know, and it's better, we can always say, yeah, we'll come back and revisit it. We know, you know, just how long that can take. And there's always other items that are more pressing. So, you know, I'm sort of like, while we're doing it, you know, let's get as much down here as we can. I also think that something like answering a question like, so is this exempted or is it included? That sort of understanding, even if it's not in the ordinance, is important so that people know whether or not they care about coming on the 17th. There could be somebody for whom that makes a difference. So asking the questions doesn't necessarily mean that everything will end up, you know, in here, but I think that it's something that we need to have a common understanding on. And I do appreciate, you know, I know I haven't taken the time to say this, but I do appreciate all of the efforts that have gone on everybody's part, you know, to make this a good ordinance for the benefit of our community. You know, that's not lost on me, and I haven't said that, but I feel that, and, you know, having sat on boards and committees and everything else, I know that's why we all show up, and that's why you're all showing up. You know, it just, yeah. I would just add, this goes a little bit on a comment previously, but 7, certificate of compliance, B, it lists a number of the codes, and it just said applicable health standards, and I think it might be useful for people to know which health standards we're talking about. That's pretty vague. And then I was wondering, under administration and enforcement, let's see, G, it.
Roman number 8.
Let's see, 8, yeah, administration and enforcement, paragraph G, which, let's see which page that would be on. It outlines an appeal process, that is when an owner is aggrieved by an order that they receive regarding that their property is unfit for human habitation. And I was wondering if that appeal process also applied to if somebody disagreed with their notice of violation. And I know that you just said, and I didn't know this before, that you would envision that if somebody feels that they've gotten a violation that isn't consistent with code or whatever, that they first should talk to the planning department and come to an understanding. But if they still disagree with having gotten the notice of violation, where do they appeal it to? And I kind of get that impression that where you come to the select board, that has to do if something is being made unfit for habitation, and the notice of violation is not so serious, but where do you appeal that? And I have to say, I hadn't thought of that before, so that is something new that I hadn't asked before.
Okay.
And I will, you know, send
All right,
a
while I've got you,
repeats.
you were quoted in the minutes. I'm jumping ahead.
I was.
And I want to know if this is an accurate quote, because I think it's not.
Okay,
In the minutes for the last meeting,
okay,
Kari spoke at length and suggested edits to the document. She also raised the question about whether this ordinance can be adopted by select board or if it needs to be town meeting.
right.
Did you say that?
I did.
As compared to saying, she also said that she had looked into, I thought you said you'd looked into that issue and concluded that it could be done by the select board.
I did look into it quite in depth. And what I came down to really was that quote by Walter Mitchell, where he said that you can look in some places with some statutes, and like 48A, and it says that town meeting shall adopt it. And I'm trying to repeat what I meant to say the last time, whether I said it or not. And he said, but you can look at other places and see where the select board has the authority to do it. And I've looked in both places, and I think I see what he's referring to, but I'm not certain that I know what he's referring to or what he referred to that night. And so I can conceive that it could go either way, but that's why I'm asking that.
Okay, so I'm going to leave it the way it's written, which is, she also raised the question about whether this ordinance can be adopted by select board or if it needs to be town meeting.
Yeah, I did raise
Okay,
that question.
I'm just gonna leave it, that quote the way it's
Yeah,
said. Okay,
yeah, I
thank you.
did, yeah, I did, that is what I said, I think.
Okay,
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Bill.
thank you. Okay, so we move on to so we move on to the public hearing next week, 2 weeks from now, whenever it is, and we go. Next order of business is, if I can find my agenda.
It's recommending a public hearing.
Ah. Oh, this is a different one. This is a recommendation to set a public hearing. Okay, I move that we set a public hearing on Monday, October 17th, 2022, to consider adoption of recommended changes to the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire Joint Power Agreement.
Second.
And there'll also be a public hearing for the Hanover Energy Aggregation Plan. Do we want to review these now, or do we want to wait for the public hearing?
I would say let's wait till the public hearing piece
Okay.
here.
Okay, just for the public, these are long documents, agreements that we've entered into in the past. Those bodies have met and are suggesting changes to some of their bylaws or methods of operating, and it all looked pretty straightforward to me, and it's been reviewed by staff. We'll go into the public hearing. If we agree to have a public hearing, we'll do it at that time.
And it's been approved by the Energy Aggregation Committee as well.
Okay. Okay, so there's a motion to set the public hearing. Was there a second?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I move that we set a public hearing on Monday, October 17th, 2022, to review and recommend changes to the Hanover Energy Aggregation Plan.
So second.
Nancy seconds. Discussion? Same as before. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Yes.
Will the minutes or some other place very prominently say that the public hearing for this rental ordinance will be on the same night? I mean, we said it last week in a more informal.
For these here,
For what we just discussed about the rental ordinance, yes,
for in the minutes from this meeting?
yes.
Yeah.
Let's-
I mean, we
Let's
can
make
certainly-
sure
yeah.
that it's
In bold.
duly noted that we'll.
I think this
As a
instruction
pu-
right now will probably.
As a part of the
equal
continued discussion,
that.
we
Yes.
point out that we are having the public hearing on October 17th.
And we'll make sure it's on the website prominently displayed and all
Yeah.
that as
Great.
well.
Excellent.
And we do have actually one more public hearing to set that's not on the agenda.
On the 17th?
Yeah,
Right.
or any, but yeah, which is the next.
We have two wonderful donations to the Hanover Fire Department. One from the Byrne Foundation and one from Lynn Miller. You want to talk about particularly the wonderful gift from the Byrne Foundation? Tell us about that.
Sure. Marty McMillan, Hanover Fire Chief. So let me give you a little background. So about 6 or 7 years ago, we did some studies with our dispatch with the idea of could we regionalize, combine the Lebanon, Hartford Fire Department, and the Hanover Fire Department into a regional dispatch. We had some people, outside entities, come in and do a study, kind of looked at that. So all three of those departments, dispatching comes in under the police department on the fire side. So anyways, I won't get into all the details. A lot of technicality, 3 different unions, 2 states, especially on police side of the business, a lot of hurdles to come up. So we never were able to accomplish the regionalization of one entity dispatching across both state lines for both police and fire. So the Hartford Fire Department came up with a program. If you've ever heard a Weather Channel robotic voice, so you click on and you hear that, that's associated when they push the button to dispatch a unit. This for an alarm, the robotic portion of it goes out and it does what we call station alerting. It flips on lights at night and puts a computer screen up, and it's a pretty high-tech way of dispatching. So they were the first, and a couple years later, Lebanon picked that up, and we're still using the old-fashioned system where you hit the bells and lights come on, and you kind of like throwing a grenade in there and you scare everybody, they jump up. But we still don't have the ability to connect our dispatch, and we think if we purchase this, than not having a regional dispatch, that each dispatch center, at the moment that they dispatch in their individual towns for a structure fire or a dispatch situation where all 3 career departments are going to be dispatched, that simultaneously all of us would get this message over this software and this station alerting. It's expensive. It was about $130,000, I think originally about $180,000, and it has dropped in price. So with COVID, et cetera, Chris Doolin, who's our captain of communications, had approached me on many times, and I said, Chris, we just can't spend the money, but let's look if we can get either some donations or some grants and see if we could get some federal funding or state funding to try to make this happen. So Chris wrote a letter shortly after Alex arrived with his permission, and asked the Byrne Foundation, the Jack and Dorothy Byrne Foundation, if they would like to contribute to that. And we very quickly got a check back from Mrs. Byrne for $50,000. So we do have some other grant money. We think we have enough grant money available to move this program forward. And so that's the history of this. And like I say, we've been working on trying to solve this problem for about, almost since I've been here, a little over probably 7 years. You know, it was pretty apparent. So that's the kind of short, long version of the history of that. And we are
So this is
incredibly
a
grateful
leg
to-
up in trying to find the funding to accomplish this objective.
And I think we're in great shape, and I can't say enough things. I think everybody in this community knows how generous the Jack and Dorothy Byrne Foundation has been for a variety of very good purposes. So we thank her. We wrote her a letter already and thanked her for her contribution.
Do we have to have a public hearing to accept
do.
this money?
Yep.
I thought so.
So that's the
that's,
next,
yeah,
that was the
we
one.
can't really
Right.
stick that in the coffers
Because of the size.
without
Because of the
scheduling a
size
public
and that
hearing.
was unanticipated, yeah.
Right.
So we had to do the same thing with the grants for the streetlight project. Anytime
Right.
we have unanticipated funds, which Carly pointed out a couple of meetings ago, that are over, I think it's 5,000 or 10.
It's
yeah.
10, and it's,
And over that, we have to have a public hearing.
Okay, so we're not gonna,
we're gonna
Accept this
schedule, I move that we schedule a public hearing on October 17th to accept this wonderful donation from the Jack and Dorothy Byrne Foundation for this cool technology.
I'll make it simple. It's station alerting. How's that?
Station alerting.
Make it easy.
So second.
further discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
We have set down the public hearing. Thank you, Chief.
Great, and we did have the second donation
Yeah.
for Mrs. Miller, and again,
Yes.
that was for some services we provided, and she was happy with that, and again, we have sent her a thank you letter. That was for $100.
Can you give us any details on she used the word rescue, I think.
I think
like
we
it's in the
assisted
letter.
her.
I'm
I
not
don't
providing
think it
any
was-
confidentiality, but.
Yeah, you know, and we get HIPAA that we worry about, so I think,
Provided great service.
there you go.
Provided a great service. I withdraw my question.
Thank you.
And thank you, Lynn. So, all those in favor, I have a motion to accept this?
Accept this, yes. So moved.
So moved by Nancy, seconded by
I'll second.
Bill. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Lynn.
Lynn.
Marty.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Marty.
Good night, Marty.
Okay.
We have some appointments.
Okay, so, we have two appointments,
Renewals.
and these are, so we need a motion to, I guess it's both the same motion, to appoint Brian Edwards and Ian Sim.
Sim.
to the-
Reappoint, right?
Reappoint, right. They are long-term members,
Yes.
long-term members of the
Ian's
planning
been
board.
on there for probably, what?
Couple decades.
Yeah.
A long time. So, I move that we appoint Brian Edwards and Ian Sim to the planning board.
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Brian and Ian, for your continued service. minutes of September 26th. My only question was the one I asked, sorry, and I'm now gonna let it read the way it reads. I give you one question though, on, at the beginning, the opening ones, we do use the words unanticipated several times, but we were educated that they were not unanticipated. So should we be dropping those words for the minutes? I think we voted, or I think we said last time we dropped the words unanticipated from the official minutes. Is that, my memory correct? Okay.
For the second one, for the second amount that was accepted, the 271 was anticipated.
Anticipated,
It was the first one, the 240.
that just came from,
That was completely unexpected. The serendipity just rained down on us.
Okay, so the 240 was unanticipated,
Yes,
so we should just change the wording for the 271.
correct.
Okay, so I move that we, I modify the minutes to get rid of the words unanticipated as it relates to the $271,000 grant. Other than that, I saw no changes, corrections, or additions. Any others by the board? So, did I move their acceptance as amended?
I thought you moved with the amendment you just made, so I'll second.
Okay. Further changes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. You were not, that's right, you were off.
I was
gallivanting. Yeah, you were off gallivanting.
Living the life.
Good for you. Okay, so, administrative report.
I got nothing really other than, I think you all heard enough a week ago. And I'll say I just want to thank Sarah over at the library for having a really interesting, I don't know if anybody's heard the conversation, really enjoyed the conversation with her. Got a lot of positive feedback about it.
Very good.
Yeah, a really cool experience. So if you're curious in learning more about any of our staff, once a month, we've got Captain Josh Merriam on the first, well, it's the second Hanover Happenings episode. And then Sarah Molesworth from the library, the last one, and hope to do these each month. So check it out if you haven't, hanoverhappenings.com.
Select-board reports. Joanne?
the bike walk committee met this afternoon, and it was a very animated discussion. We spent a bit of time talking about our new signs as we enter the urban compact, where it says speed limits will be 25 miles an hour unless posted otherwise. And there was a letter to the editor saying that sign went up, and then like within a sneeze, there's a sign that says 30 miles an hour. And the same holds true in different parts of the entrances, like at the Richmond School and in Lebanon, coming in on 120. And so there was a lot of discussion as to how we could make that more clear. And we have, the bike walk committee has heard from the Richmond School principal, feeling that that zone from roundabout to roundabout should always be 25, it shouldn't go up. Or, and especially, and we also talked about coming in from 120 by Greensboro Road, that corner it probably should be 25, just because it's a kind of a blind corner. It's where we installed the sidewalk a number of years ago, that section of 120. So there was a lot of discussion about that, so I imagine we'll hear more. Looking forward, we did spend some time on the sustainability master plan and the vision on that, and making sure that mobility was clearly articulated in all of the 8 vision goals. And so a very active board. Got a college student that's really active, has joined the party, and so it's a good group. Busy.
Just as an aside, in the last 2 days, I've experienced 3 bicyclists coming at me on the wrong side of the road. And it was just scary. Every one of them was scary, because you can't, they're overtaking you, you basically have to stop. So anyway, if the public out there, bicycles need to be on the same side of the road as cars so we can properly share the road. Nancy?
I mentioned this last week, the How annual meeting is coming up on Sunday. October 23rd at 4 o'clock. And a good time will be had by all. You get a chance to peek behind the curtain and hear about the operations of the how, the finances, and a lengthy conversation with the director, Ruby Simon. So it's well worth your effort to attend, and there's always good food. Tomorrow, the planning board meets in this room at 7:30 again, and I will be delighted to let Ian and Brian know they've been reappointed, particularly because Brian is our chair. So, thank you very much for doing that for them.
I have nothing to report. Bill?
Nothing to
Okay. You have the magic words for our non-public session?
Yes.
That's
Let me
not on
pull
my
up
agenda,
The
so.
agenda, 1 second. So this is, that there's been a request for a non-public session to discuss items pursuant to RSA 91-A3, A, and B.
I so move.
Bill Garrity, yes?
Arthur Fessy, yes.
Peter Christie, yes.
Nancy Carter, yes?
Joanna Whitcomb, yes.
We're in a
Thanks,
non-public
Kari.
session.
Bye.